That chair is farty. It was even farting when I was on it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
I'm Tori.
And I'm Josh. And Larry, it's great to have you back.
Thank you, Josh.
And you think Nick did a great job filling in for you last week?
Absolutely. He did a great job. And I didn't have to read the book.
I guess there was nothing to commit to on your end.
No, nothing to commit to. And I'm not much of a fan of the horror genre in general. It scares me.
Oh, that's one of the funniest things I've heard.
But we'll move on from that.
Horror is one of my favorite genres, but we're going to be doing something completely different, and this is a much thinner, slimmer, shorter book, and it is Journey to the East by Hermann Hesse. We went over Demian back in Season 5. It is the most viewed video for Season 5 as we film this. And Larry, I put you in charge of putting together a discussion starter?
Yes. So I have a question.
Okay.
After reading this book, knowing what you know about the League, would you be interested in joining the League?
To me, the League is a cultist kind of... it's supposed to represent religion as a cult, where it's a religion that feels that it plays the role of a higher being and that it can excommunicate you if you break rules and manipulate it to the point that you have done something to disobey the higher being. But I also feel that this journey that they are engaged on is a representation of what we want out of religion and cults. And for someone like H.H., which is clearly Hermann Hesse, I say that him as a character, he on this journey is looking to get together with a beautiful princess, which I think a lot of us will join religions or cults or organizations in order to find a girlfriend or that special someone. So that's what I get out of it.
So is that a yes?
Would I join this league?
Knowing what you know.
Knowing what I know, I think I'd probably, being the introverted, positively intuitive person that I am, no.
Very interesting. How about you, Tori?
I'm sitting here trying to weigh the options. I'm an extremely curious individual, so I want to. My initial jump response was yes in my head, but thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that because, yeah, those questions are out there, but I also kind of saw it as like kind of a metaphor for like the artistic world in general, all kind of moving in one direction, even though like there's a bunch of people who write a certain kind of genre. They move in one general direction and they span time and history with the way that they write things. And at the end of the book, I feel like that's that kind of wink and the, tip of the hat to that. So I don't know if I want to say, like, yeah, do I want to join that bandwagon if I look at it through that lens? Or, the explanation that you just gave it as a allegory towards, like, organized religion. I don't know. Now I'm on the fence. My initial response was like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll give it a go. I'd like to see where that journey would take you.
And it's interesting. It's interesting how it is a journey to the East, because I wrote a note in here.
Well, yeah, Hermann Hesse, right? He wrote other books about the East in general.
Yeah, it was connected. There were connections to Narcissus and Goldman. There was a character named Goldman. There was also a nod to Steppenwolf in here, and he said, well, he was very. There were a great deal of Buddhist reflections in his works. he said that the greatest spiritual influence he had was the way that his parents exercised Christianity. And it meant they didn't preach it, they lived it. Which I feel I'm completely in line with that, where you're not preaching the higher being, but instead you are living the examples that religion
I felt like that part was a little, for lack of a better term, attractive throughout the entire thing, where it was this kind of amassed knowledge. So I found that part like really cool with the, passing through towns and people who live there being able to expunge all this information or like old stories or stuff like that. So I thought that was a shared community of individuals, of like-minded individuals. Like I see that as being very attractive. So I can see how that would be really, really interesting. But on the flip side, I have seen like it's not a cult sort of cult behavior exhibited in organized religion. And I've had a friend kind of be encapsulated in that very quickly because of certain events that had happened. So again, I can see where you're coming from with the like it's a cult without it being like necessarily.
Just ask everybody who joined the Church of Scientology.
That's another great example.
There's so many people that are leaving and are revealing the blackmail and the high life-altering demands that this church required.
Psychological abuse that kind of came with it, so yeah.
Yeah.
You see, to me it rang more like a secret society than a...
That's what I got, too.
Yeah, I would say
because I wasn't looking
it's
from a
a
religious
cult.
standpoint. Yeah. I wouldn't say cult. Cult has a religious... like a salacious religious connotation.
But they all looked up to this Leo, who played as a servant, but in actuality was the leader of this cult, which really, that masquerade that he played. And then at the end, it was, you pretty much, you became a piece of him.
Yeah.
I read it as when they were talking about when they camped at that one castle and all of the authors were running around kind of almost like ghosts, and their creations were the ones that were lively. But I might have read this wrong, but he came over to Leo and asked him one point and said, like, why is that the way that it is? And Leo explained, so I totally forgot but you know which part of the story I'm talking about, right?
It's from the beginning.
Yeah, it's like halfway through the story.
They have that conversation.
I thought that was the big reveal of Leo was this created character that came from him recounting and writing the story. So his whole entire point of needing to write the story was to solidify Leo. Leo wasn't this part, it was this formative idea, and it wasn't until the end when he found that construct of him kind of fusing into Leo, was that was the reveal of him being that creative author, and Leo being this kind of almost... creation that he brought and made manifest. So that's what I thought the end of the book was. Like, the big reveal was, it was this secret organization of, like, creative individuals out there looking for, like, the bigger purpose, which kind of was this generic idea of enlightenment.
Yeah, and I think Hesse touches upon that frequently, but he's also very much based off his Buddhist reflection, that takes place intuitively. And I think that this journey to the East pokes at that, which the thing about the East and its representation, I think the quote that sticks out is from page 13 when Novalis, it's the Novalis quote, "Where we are really going, always home," which, because West is usually a representation of
the frontier,
seeking greater opportunity, very often financially.
I see that from, like, an American standpoint.
not just American, but Western civilization as a whole.
Yes.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
We've been going ever east or westward till we got to the end. We can't go anymore west.
Fair
We
enough.
got running into China.
When you got back and getting back to the East.
Yeah.
Went so west, we went east. But yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah.
But was there anything else that we wanted to say?
When it started out, I thought this was going to be one of those, like, wordy stories of self-aggrandizing, and then about chapter 2, I actually really enjoyed what was going on. I think it's pretty much a fun little fictitious read.
I thought it was funny, though, in chapter 1, the first guy that left the group.
Yeah.
And the way that they shunned him. And they just about belittled him for wanting to leave. And you even forgot the gaslighting
was, that's where I can totally see the Scientology, like, parallels, where it's kind of the, like, you for tricking them into thinking that they've forgotten things when they probably didn't even forget the things, but we don't know because we weren't there in the situation, so.
But it just seems like that's the kind of thing that you would do if you were part of a secret society kind of situation, right? It's kind of like, we're in on something. It just seems like it's a gateway to malevolence, in a way. You know what I mean? To be like part of something that is exclusive in such a way that not only is it exclusive, but it's also a secret. You know, like Skull and Bones at Yale.
Its exclusiveness on its secrecy,
Right? Like the Skull and Bones Club out of Yale. Weird stuff going on up there, you know what I mean?
Well, everybody wants to be part of some sort of secret thing, so I can totally see that,
And they want to feel like they belong, too.
Well, and you definitely
that would be the tempting part of something of this nature, but I think there's things I've gone through enough of to realize that this is nothing more than taking part in the crowd, which that's me and my great hesitation of joining many of social networks. Granted, I was on Facebook pretty early. I still hesitated. Never took part in the MySpace craze because I heard enough about that.
The thing that strikes me about the character is how badly he wants to belong to something bigger than himself. Right?
And he's still
Don't we
pretty
all, though, like, on some platform?
He's still mentally. He still is not developed mentally because the fact that his main reason for joining is to meet with the princess and be with the princess. That just goes to show you.
It was a very naive.
He joined because he wanted a girl. So that's
his motivation, as opposed to something more. What?
I think that was the fact that it was something frivolous of this nature
very
means that
selfish.
he joined something, not necessarily thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it took him quite some time to put some thought into it. I think with Demian, his Emil Sinclair was much more. His epiphany was far more. I think he got so much more out of his philosophical expedition, which was his meetings and encounters with Max Demian and his mother. But that we have a discussion for that up. So
I'd be curious, Tori, when you mentioned what you thought this book was going to be as a self-aggrandizing. I'd be curious to see what you would think of that book.
Yeah, I haven't read that, so now I'm going to have to give that one a read.
Absolutely. That was my choice.
Might be what you were afraid this one was going to be.
That was my choice for my favorite book that I read in 2016. And I was the only one on the panel to give it 5 stars. Everybody else gave it 4.
Yeah,
and he stands by it.
Yeah. And I thought I would Journey to the East to me was a bit behind that, but I think that its length. I think it delivers on its philosophical message and its
which
I think both of them do, but I was referring to Journey to the East.
The philosophical message.
Yeah,
I don't really think there was that much of a philosophical message to this. I thought it was very surface.
It was more so it's more so pro-intuition, but I mean, I think anything that Hesse writes is philosophical in its own way. It examines the meaning of life and the the human thought.
Yeah,
it's the psychological and the philosophical when they go hand in hand with one another.
Yeah, it's an interesting case with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to read more.
Me too. I have his whole collection. Yeah, I have his whole major collection on my shelf.
Interesting.
But,
Especially since this story has characters from his other works in it.
mm-hmm.
Kind of makes me want to see what those other characters were about.
I'll say this is a good introductory piece to his literature because I've never read anything of his. This is my first story of his, so now I'm intrigued. Now I'm intrigued.
But, yeah, most people read Siddhartha. That's the one that they constantly refer to. In America, it's Siddhartha that everybody talks about. In Germany, and because Hesse lived much of his life in Switzerland, but in the German-speaking countries, it's Demian that everybody talks about, and I would say that Demian was much more impactful.
Yeah, this one just seemed more like the longing for something to me is the way that is what I got out of it. But also, it was also kind of like traumatic.
Lighter, yeah, is a good word for it.
What's that?
Lighter. It was a lighter read. I definitely would agree with you there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. No, I didn't hear what you said. But to me, there was like this trauma of him like no longer being associated with his league, and he obsesses about it, and then by the time that he rediscovers it, like he's begging to get back in.
And that's why I thought this was kind of almost like an allusion to individuals who create for a living, be it, like a violinist or because the main character originally was a violinist and a storyteller, or being like overall the overarching, the artists and the authors, and we're always searching for something, especially creators of any sort of, fine art or anything in between. So that's what I thought, and at that very end, the big reveal of Leo being this character that was kind of almost like an accumulation of everybody's thoughts, of being that perfect servant. So wouldn't a perfect piece written by an artist, or a perfect piece of art, music, what have you, wouldn't that be the perfect servant to the creator, the person who made it, the master? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I got with it, was there wasn't so much a philosophical message in it, so much as a kind of a thought on
and he also made that point where once that it's the whole death of the author, but also there's so many meanings to it, where once you create something, whether it be a work of art or a work of literature or even another being through having a child, you lose.
They talk about motherhood at one point.
You lose yourself.
That's such a sad way
you
of
lose
looking
yourself
at motherhood.
and the parts of you go into that creation.
So that's kind of what I saw. That's what I got out of it from not a very religious.
That was probably that was one of the most powerful.
And now that you said that there are other characters of his mentioned in there, I kind of feel like that solidifies that thought process. So they're kind of being made manifest in this book.
Already then. Do we have any final thoughts?
Final thought I have is stay away from secret societies. Delete your soul.
Oh.
That's what I got out of it. Like, you guys are off on Scientology and religion. I'm like, man, keep me away from the Illuminati.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
Oh, there's definite allusions to it. Like, they're talking about Plato being a founding member, Pythagoras.
I think by playing with not naming it, by saying it's this league,
the league,
the league, you get to be able to have that correlation mentally to whatever secret society you think of, be it religious or not religious or anything like that.
I'm that person that reads through the terms and conditions and the privacy policy because I don't want to end up like Kyle on South Park.
Oh, God.
Being part of a human centipede.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
Ooh, no, unfortunately, I'm a little more impulsive, so I'm very curious. I'd be like, yeah, what's that about? And probably wouldn't go fully down the rabbit hole, but, I'd be like, sure, why not? Spin me the tale. Pitch it to me. But, at the very least.
Alrighty then. How would we rate this on a 0 to 5 scale with half stars permitted, Larry?
I would give it a 3.5. It didn't move me particularly, and, I feel like... I won't be thinking about it very much in a week or so. It didn't have a lasting impact on me. So, worth the time. It's entertaining enough. You can get through it in an afternoon. It's not a lot.
70 pages, if I remember correctly. It's
Yeah.
small.
For me, it was 118. Depends on the copy, though.
Oh.
But you know, it's not going to change your life or anything. Or if it does, you know, then you might feel tempted to join some kind of secret society. And then it's not, you know, it's probably not an improvement.
You know what? Live your life. You do you. But no, I'd have to agree with you though. It's a 3.5. I'd give it as well. It was whelming. I think it's the word that I can apply to it. Whelming. It was a fun read. It was entertaining. It made me think in the moment that I was reading it. But like after this discussion, I'm probably not going to think about it moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a solid 4 because I think that there were enough messages. There were messages and enough moments that were memorable, but I still think it was just a good piece of his, not a great piece. I'm not over the moon with it like I was with Demian, but I would say that it was, out of the 4 Hesse books I've read, I say this was second, but Siddhartha and Narcissus and Goldman were solid 4, and we're a bit more about plot.
So once again, Josh overrates Hesse.
Depends on what you consider overrating, and it depends on who you're sitting with too.
I literally feel like I'm caught in between.
I'm just making a joke. I get
what you're saying.
Because you brought it up earlier. That you rated it a 5 and everybody else rated it a 4.
Yeah, I gave Hesse a good rating because I think Hesse is a good writer. I think he's a good author, and he
it was good. What was written was
messages.
good, but
and also, when it comes to judging books by their covers, I love the Picador covers for the Hesse novels.
Let's see.
This one,
palm.
It's a palm, yeah.
It's a palm.
He has inanimate, specific objects that he concentrates on. My favorite one is the cover for the Glass Bead game, where it's they look like it's glass beads, so they look like glass balls that you would find in a ball pit.
Okay.
Yeah, there's that. There's
what kind of ball pits are you trying to do?
That's what I'm...
Josh, you live an interesting life.
You just gotta look it up online. Steppenwolf it's like if you took a close-up of Chewbacca's torso, but not any, nothing too revealing.
Okay.
There's...
So not the shower
I'm gonna let
scene
that
from
one
Solo.
fly.
It's just his Picador. You know what?
Oh, we've kicked the hornet's nest.
I gotta see what Chewbacca's abdomen looks like.
Yeah, please share with the class here.
Here's the cover for the Glass Bead game.
Okay, I see what you're talking about.
And here's the cover for Steppenwolf.
Let me see. That's Chewie, right?
Yeah, that's...
It's furry.
Yeah.
It's furry.
I think I see his butt.
Oh, no.
Help!
Now that's pornographic. Alrighty then. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Tori Gladiators. This was a discussion of Hermann Hesse's Journey to the East.
Believe it or not.
And until next time, guys, keep reading.